Welcome to Your Aha Life. I'm your host, Dr. Tonya Harris Cornelius. The Aha Life is a life of more joy, more purpose, and more fulfillment. Through these episodes, I will bring you stories of insight and inspiration to help you live the life that you dream about, the life that you are meant to live, your Aha Life. Enjoy the episode. Well, hello there. I'm Tonya Cornelius, and I am back with your Aha Life. Thank you so much for joining me. I have a wonderful guest here with me today, Tiffany Goode. Tiffany and I have a little bit of a history together, and we're going to have a great conversation. So before we jump in, I want to read a little bit of your bio, Tiffany, that you sent me, and then you'll fill in the gaps wherever you want to, actually. So, Tiffany Goode, musician, TV and film music composer and producer. I'm going to mess this up maybe. Ethnomusicologist. You have to tell us what that's all about. Private instructor and an actress. Tiffany Goode is a trumpetiste. I think you put all these words in this bio, Tiffany, to trip me up this morning, but you have
I promise I did.
It's all about. It's good. I was so excited when I got it just to read it, but let me finish for our audience and then we can jump into this. So Tiffany Goode is a trumpetiste born in Richmond, Virginia, and currently residing in Atlanta, Georgia. She began her love affair with music and the trumpet at 10 years old. During her formative years of high school and college, Tiffany had the privilege of studying under her mentors, Tuscan Jasper and Bob Ransom, respectively. Two professional jazz trumpet players. She received a bachelor's of science in music from Hampton University in audio engineering and has since received a professional certification in producing music for film and TV from Berklee College of Music. She is currently pursuing a master's in ethnomusicology from Liberty University. Tiffany had the opportunity to work with Teddy Riley at Future Studios in Virginia Beach for several years before starting her own. I can't speak this morning. Maybe I need coffee. Maybe that's what I need. But working with Teddy Riley at Future Studios in Virginia Beach for several years before starting her own independent studio and label. How cool is that? Tiffany's music has been featured in several independent films, including Joy Road, Every Scar and Dimple, and Break Fast. An avid jazz student and lover, she has been influenced by many jazz trumpeters, including Freddie Hubbard, Miles Davis, Roy Hargrove, Terrence Blanchard, Clora Bryant, Valaida Snow, Ernestine, Tiny Davis, and Cynthia Robinson. So you know you're going to be educating me a little bit this morning. Tiffany was given the distinct honor of depicting Sly and the Family Stone co-founder, trumpet player, and horn arranger Cynthia Robinson in season 2 of American Soul on BET. You've just been doing your thing here. She has also had several other minor television roles. So I'm going to finish up a little bit. Now I still have a little bit more to go. I want to read this. Although she loves straight ahead jazz, Tiffany enjoys fusing jazz with her other musical influences like reggae, hip hop, in order to create her own sound. Tiffany also plays with Orchestra Noir, West Side Winds Jazz Orchestra, and Peachtree Symphonic Winds. She is the lead trumpet, band manager, and co-founder of Soul Rising Band, Atlanta's only all-female reggae band. So I'll finish with this because this is the good part. Tiffany released her debut album, Today Was a Good Day, April 17th, 2020, under her independent label, Good Stuff Entertainment Records. Today Was a Good Day has been the #1 album on Bandcamp in Atlanta for modern jazz for over 26 weeks. I'll leave it there. There's still so much more that I didn't say, but Tiffany, wow. I want to say I knew you win. I knew you win. I knew you before I even knew all about the music stuff, you know? So
Yeah.
what else would you like to share before we jump into the conversation?
I think the only other thing I would share is that I'm a mother, and my son is everything to me, is my heart. And I take that as serious as I do, or more seriously than I do anything else. So that's the only other part I would
Yeah,
add.
yeah. You know, give it up for the moms. We always, it's our kids, you know, everything. I always say everything can be going so right in our worlds, but if something is not going right in our kids' worlds, it might as well not be going right in our world, you know, because we're so tethered to our children.
Yes.
So good for you. And I'm so proud of you, Tiffany, just doing this. So I say, you know, you're educating me because I knew you when. I knew you when we were both working at Turner, and we were
Yeah.
in very similar professional fields, working, helping organizations, you know, undergo change management or navigate change in the organization. That's how you and I came to know one another. And yeah, I wasn't even, I think I found out late and not, maybe not even in depth about your music background. So, you know, so tell me a little bit even about how you made the transition. What prompted you to make this transition from corporate America and change management expert to full-time music?
Yes. Um, So I've always done music, as I said, since 10. And so even when I was in corporate, I was still doing music, but just it was the side hustle, right? The side thing that I was doing and not my major thing. But was still I had my studio. I was working with people, working with my brother and different people. So I started really making the transition after being laid off, really. Like I was so and I guess that was the major transition because I did some of my music for film while I was still at Turner. I was still recording myself and really doing some of the preemptive work to the album while I was still at Turner. But, you know, I still hadn't made it a serious, like, this is what I'm going to do. This is going to be my first thing. So after I got laid off from Turner, which was a blessing in disguise, if you will, I got a chance to really sit down and think, you know, what do you want to do? Like, do you want to go back in there and really, you know, hammer it out and, you know, get on that wheel for myself, is how I felt at the time and work. Or, you know, do you really want to take a moment and start to pursue your passion? And I decided to give it a try. You know, not getting any younger, might as well go ahead and give it a try. So I did go back and consult for another 2 years for another company. And while I was doing that, I was traveling. I was a road warrior traveling Monday through Thursday. And so I had my trumpet with me every time I went. And the people would be like, "Did you bring your trumpet?" I did, because I was that serious about it. And so when I was working on my album then, I leaving out of that particular job, probably about 6 months, maybe no, I guess about a year later is when COVID actually happened.
Mhm.
And at that time, I had actually put together a pretty good body of work, which is interesting. And I had realized it, but you know, hadn't realized that my brother is always a very telltale sign to me and talks to me very directly. And so he was during COVID, he was like, "You should really put out your album." And it's the first time that really I think I've heard the word your album, you know, so I hadn't even thought of it in that way. Even though I was listening to the songs, I was working out to
That was a bit of an aha, huh?
aha, like I have an album. I have an album. Okay. And so that's how it transitioned into, you know, putting out the album and all that and really, really getting um serious about it was that moment. I would say the big moment was getting let go of Turner, was really the big moment that said, now's the time that you get serious about it. If you want to, this is the moment.
You
Yeah.
know, I love that, you know, because for so many reasons, Tiffany, because even people today with COVID and furloughs and job displacements and everything, people can have this sense of feeling lost. Like, what do I do now? Right. But I think that is that is a perfect question. What do I do now? There's so much opportunity in that question. Don't get me wrong. I know it can play on you emotionally, but I love that you said you stopped and asked, you know, instead of just rolling right into the next thing, you stopped and asked yourself, well, what do I really want to do? And it led you back to your passion, which is music and playing the trumpet. So I love that story. And I also love that, you know, you had that aha moment that you had been doing all of this, because sometimes we have these passions and they're kind of underground,
Yes.
and it takes other people, like it took your brother to say it's time for you to record an album, and you hadn't even realized that you actually had put together enough songs for an album. I just love that story so much.
Yes. And I think it was interesting too, because when I got laid off from Turner, everyone did start, they're putting their resumes out there, everyone did start the process, so everyone around me, all of my peers who I know were doing things that made me think, oh man, I should really probably be doing this too. So it was a really interesting change because, and when I wasn't doing it, they were looking at me like, what are you doing?
Yeah. Yeah.
What? And I was like, So yes, it's interesting when you have to depart from the norm of what's happening around you and make a different choice. That is a scary thing to do, because everything around you is saying you should be doing this. So that was a very interesting moment for me.
Doing what is familiar, right? Sticking with what is familiar instead of, you know, going down this path that is unexplored, for you, music full time, you know? Yeah. So what do in making this decision to, you know, to go music full time after being laid off, as you said, you kind of went against the norm of what was going on. What did you learn about yourself?
Oh, what did I learn about myself? I think I learned a lot about myself in going this path. I learned um, that I'm courageous than I thought. I learned that there's no scary thing a bit like I think we get really scared about stepping out, and we think, there's a little monster somewhere and it's gonna pop, something's gonna happen and all these things are gonna happen. And I realized, there's no scary monster. And I think I also learned that we're conditioned a certain way growing up, and a certain way growing up we're conditioned, especially if you are a first generation, all of that, college person, all of these things. And I had reached a certain level of success at Turner, that of course my parents loved. And to depart from that was an interesting thing. So I had to kind of rethink a lot of things because, like I said, we're conditioned. Like you go to college, which I did, check. You get a responsible job, which I did, check.
Yeah.
You do that. Really, at that time, you do it for 30 years and you retire. Is really their thought. Like you do that, lock into that for 30 years and retire. So that's where I departed. I did 15. I did half.
You did have. No,
So
so often, and I'll let you finish. So often that's what we are. And I said, that's why, you know, I really prompted me partly for your aha life, is because we can spend our lives checking off boxes.
mm,
And it doesn't mean that that is, you know, the thing that is our passion or the thing that brings us the most joy or even a sense of purpose and fulfillment, but we're checking those boxes off because the achievement gene in us wants to feel successful and think that by checking off those boxes, that is what will make us happy. That is what will make us, feel fulfilled. But we wake up one day and we realize that checking another box won't get us there, that it really is about taking time to pause and say, what really brings me joy, and how can I spend the next, part of my journey. And I again go back to what you did that, when everyone else was hunting for another job, you stopped and said, where's my joy, where's my passion, and how do I pursue that?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think to add on to that, to what you're saying, is that checking the boxes and wanting to make, the people around you proud. I want to make them proud, and not really understanding that, the pride will come with you doing what you want to do too. It's not going to make them less proud. Now they may have to adjust. I think my mom had to adjust. I think she was like, "So you're going to do what again?" But my mom is overjoyed. Like, she's like, "Oh my gosh, you're doing so well with your music," and I think, if we just pursue our passions and our joys and our loves, the success, the money, or whatever is going to come. More than anything, you're feeding your own soul. You're making yourself happy. You're probably extending your life because you're not stressed out, and all of these beautiful things. So I think at the end of the day, the way pursuing your heart outweighs everything else.
Yeah. I agree. I think a couple of times you've broken up in the conversation, but hopefully our listeners will get all of that, because you're kind of spitting out some really good stuff here. I asked you, what did you learn about yourself, but what have been some of your biggest ahas through this moment of, leaving your corporate job, starting, pursuing your own career, going back and continuing to educate yourself in your music passion, and now having your own, your own label and your own album. Yeah. So what have been some ahas that you've gotten from this?
Let me check something real quick just to make sure our connection is good. One second.
Okay.
One second.
Okay. We're live here, so it's all good.
All right. Let's see if that
Good.
helps.
All right.
Okay. All right. Some of my ahas in making this transition, in making the label, is that really, if this is going to sound really kind of hokey, but really, if you dream it, you really can achieve it. Like, if you really put your heart and your mind to what you're passionate about, and you start to make steps towards that thing, whatever that thing is, that it will produce for you. I tell people all the time, I planted a seed in each and every one of us, if not multiple seeds. We're not one thing. None of us are one dimensional. And so if you were to nurture that seed, do work towards that seed will produce fruit. And I think that was a huge thing for me, is that, the fear of, will I be able to survive focusing on my passion versus, this very beautiful corporate 6-figure job that I had at the time, right? I have a son. Will I be able to provide for him? And so many variables you're thinking about, and those variables keep you in a place. They really keep you in a place of saying, I don't know if I'm going to do that, right?
Yeah.
And really understanding that, and putting faith in God, and really understanding the source of your strength really made the difference for me. That was probably my biggest aha moment. And then let me say this too. This is another big one, is that everything happens for a reason. So, you may not understand why you're doing certain things at a certain time. Like, I did my audio engineering degree, I did my MBA, I, went to Turner, I did a whole host of marketing stuff, I did change, I did all this. And then you're trying to figure out, like, that's just a weird stew that I'm making of things. And you get to another place and you understand how all of these little factors come in to help you in what you're doing now. And that's a beautiful thing to understand, that nothing is not on purpose, even if sometimes you feel like it's not. You're like, I don't understand that. So that was a huge aha moment. The everything is helping me right now, all of my experiences.
Everything is working together, right? And
Yeah.
I think that's so true. Is we think that aha moments have to be these big cataclysmic, like but and that does happen, don't get me wrong, but really our life is a series of small little aha moments, insights, inspirations that we are constantly getting. And what you did was you pieced that all together. And I forget whose quote this is, so I'm going to be bad about it, but it says, we 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 live our lives moving forward, but we understand it looking backward.
Mm,
So all of the pieces that you were putting together have brought you to this day. I
absolutely.
don't know if you saw me, I was a little bit distracted because I was going to my phone because you wrote something. I think you have to tell me where I picked it up from, because I actually cut and pasted it and put it in my phone because I was so inspired by it, Tiffany. Might have been Facebook, or it might have been, I think it was probably Facebook, maybe LinkedIn, but I think it was Facebook. It says, getting comfortable in your skin after for so long living to please and make others proud is a process. You have to please yourself first. Be gentle with yourself. But once you start the process, let me tell you, honey, you never want to be anything else. And you got a
Yeah.
lot of emojis there, right there. And you got hashtag grateful, hashtag enjoy the journey, hashtag who dat, hashtag oh, it's me. Yeah, so that was so inspiring to me. And I was like, oh, I gotta have Tiffany on the show. Yeah, so
Yeah.
what inspired that? I mean, that's true. That's what you've been talking about this morning.
Yeah, no, that happened. I think I wrote that this week, maybe beginning of this week. Because really, I was having a moment too where you're reflecting and you're saying, okay, all righty, what are we doing? Like, you always have a moment where you go back and go, making sure I'm dotting my I's and crossing my T's. And I said, you know what though? The end of the day, you have to be authentic with yourself. You have to really look yourself in the mirror. I'm reading this David Goggins book, and David Goggins talks about the mirror, and you got to look yourself in the mirror, and you're the hardest on yourself, and say, hey, you have to be you regardless of anybody else. So kind of what I was talking about a little bit earlier, definitely. And the fact that once you get into that space of being you, you really understand there's no other space that you want to be in. Like I'm probably the happiest I've ever been now. I'm
Mm.
probably the most peaceful I've ever been now. And everything, like when I look at myself, I understand and see, so many beautiful things. Whereas I lived a very stressed life at Turner. I'm not gonna lie to you. It was a very stressful time.
Yeah.
And, uh, just being able to do music, being able to express myself, being able to hear people come back to me and tell me how much my music impacts them, lets me know that I'm living on purpose. Lets me know that I'm doing the thing that God wanted me to come do when, he sent me here. So yeah, it was all of those feelings for me when I wrote that. Yeah, I wouldn't want to do anything else at this moment for sure.
It was
Mhm.
so inspiring. It was so inspiring to read it. I had to cut and paste it just to even to remind myself, and definitely wanted to share it with our listeners this morning. So what advice then would you give to others who perhaps maybe find themselves in a similar position? You know, again, they're, whether it's a layoff, it doesn't even have to be a layoff, you know, just someone who's in a transition point in their lives for whatever reason, and they're starting to ask themselves, is this all there is, or what's next? You know, what would be your advice to them?
Yeah, my biggest thing was say, don't be fearful. Um, like I feel like where we hit problems is when we have one foot in and one foot out. Like go for it. Because once you make that dedication, that transition, that this is what I'm going for, the universe starts to say, okay, this is where we're headed. And the universe gets confused when we have one foot in and one foot out. It's like, what are we doing? Where are we at? What am I trying to do this, or am I trying to do that? You know, and I've been one foot in, one foot out. So I get it. But go for it. Like you have no, you only have one life, really. You know, you have one life to live. You know, and so as we know, the biggest thing, one of the things that people say on their deathbed is one of their biggest regrets is, man, I should have really just, you know, gone for it. I should have did my passion. I should have did what I wanted to do. And that was one of the things too, honestly, you know, doing our work that we do, those are the kind of things we share. um,
And share
um,
that with other people, right? Share it with other people, but then you're living it. Yeah.
you ain't living it, right? So that was one of the things that came back into my mind though, as I'm changing up, is like, you know, Tiff, you don't want to be, you know, you're now in your 40s. I'm 45. I have no problem sharing. God gave me the seed of playing trumpet at 10. I knew that's what I wanted to do at 10. And it took me 35 years to get to this actual place, right? Now, everything happens on purpose. So this is the perfect time for this to happen for me. No other time than this. But, you know, you think about, wow, what could I have been doing in those 35 years? Could I have done this quicker and all of that? So go for it. If you're in the midst of it, you're going to feel some trepidation. You know, if you're married, you're going to have some conversations, all of those things. But really, I would say absolutely don't, go within, talk to God, and make the best decision for you, and at least try it, right? The beautiful part about my situation was I had a severance for a minute, so I had a cushion that gave me the ability to do it. So, you know, of course, you have to figure that part out, you know, but try it. Like that, I love that you just said, you know, you're built up with a lot of aha moments. You know, that's what life is a series of aha moments. And that's exactly, I agree with that so wholeheartedly. That's exactly what I've had and continue to have. And I think one of the biggest things is when you get quiet and you go inward, you start to hear it more. You start to see the signs more, the things that are telling you, yes, you're on the right path. You know, you start to see things come forward, like the podcast from Tonya, or, you know, I did a podcast yesterday, like different things start to come forward and you're like, I'm on the right path, you know, but you have to be open and willing to go that route, you know, and fear, I believe, is normal, is absolute normal thing, first off. But I think fear happens when you are getting closer to your dream. I think you
Oh,
fear more when you're like, oh my goodness, like if you just push through that fear, on the other side is your pot of gold. So push through the fear and see your dreams come true. So fear, don't do it.
yeah, yeah. That inner critic or the big fear monger or whatever, you know, I love what you just said, and I'm going to remember that too, is that when you're closest to your goal, that's when the fear might be the strongest in you,
Yes.
but you're so close, right? And
Yes.
just having the in spite of tenacity, you know, the in spite of my fear, I'm going to keep going. I'm going to keep going. And I also, you know, just want to reiterate what you said too, is when you start walking in your path, you start walking in your purpose and your passion, it's amazing how the universe starts opening up for you. It is amazing. I'm not here to, you know, say that everything will be easy. We're not saying that, but yeah, it starts to open up to reassure you that yes, you're walking, yes, where you're going, you're on the path, keep going.
Let me just say, when I first released the album, I was like, okay, from there, I started. I got someone from LA um, reached out and was like, hey, I want to have you on my radio show. Then I had someone from Florida reach out and say, hey, I want to play your music over here. Then Bandcamp, I started becoming, right afterwards, I was number one, right? So it's 27 weeks number one for modern jazz,
Wow.
21, something like that for fusion jazz, and like 20 weeks for all jazz. But so those were things. I mean, so many different people started to reach out to me and say, hey, I want you to do this, I want you to do that. And those things let me know, oh, wow. Whereas I think I shared with you the thing, because of the fear, which is totally real, for me, the release of the album, just releasing the album because I was so fearful for it, was success for me. That was success for me. What happened past that point was just, toppings, whipped cream on top, cherry on top type of stuff. Because I was like, man, if I could just release this album, then I know that I would feel more comfortable doing more releases. So that was just the beautiful part about it. But once those things started happening, I was like, God was just directly talking to me at that point and was like, I told you, thank you.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, we do what's within our control. So what was in your control was to put together the songs, put together the music, and release it.
Yes.
Release it out into the universe,
Yes.
and that you did your part, and now it's the universe that takes it from there. So you did what was in your control to do, and I think that's so
Yes.
important for us to remember. Like, I think sometimes, I don't know, Tiffany, tell me what you think about this. We spend our times
Mm.
overthinking. Maybe I'm speaking for myself because I'm a thinker.
Yeah.
But we spend our times overthinking everything and trying to map out every contingency plan. And sometimes you've got to just learn to, have a thought, yeah, but let it go. Just let it soar out there, and believe that, the wind will catch it and pick it up and spread it out.
Yeah. Absolutely. And I look, I didn't know everybody felt that way too. I'm the same way. Like I decision sciences master, where I'm looking at every possible scenario. You know what I mean? If I do this. But yeah, absolutely. It really comes back to faith, and we can talk about 50,000 Bible verses around it, but it really comes back to faith and saying, okay, if I do this thing here, God will just provide, and and diligently working towards it. So, faith without works is dead, right? So I have to not only have the faith, but I have to put forward the effort and the work behind it in order to produce the fruit that I want to produce. I can't just say, okay, Lord, I have faith that this is going to happen and then just go lay down. Like, that's not how it works. But if you're diligent about what you're doing, then yeah, but you have to let it go. Like, you have to be able to let it go, and which was very difficult for me. I'm a control freak. Like, it was very difficult for me to say, okay, all right, I'm going to let it go and I'm going to surrender to it. Luckily I have a brother and people around me who support me in a way that makes me comfortable enough to say I can do that. um so my support system is good, but you have to, in order to release it, it really has to be built on where your faith is and
Yeah,
trust.
yeah. I so agree with that. I'm a woman of faith as well, and to my listeners, even if you're not religious per se, if you certainly have, faith in yourself, faith that the universe will open up and provide resources, people at the right place in the right time. That will get you. That will get you started at least. Yeah. So, this is before I go to this last question, which we're all already close to our last question, and then I'm going to ask you to play a little something if you don't mind. Um, but Your mom. So what does your son think about, his mom being a trumpeter and I meant to ask you, look, I'm going through this. What are all these things? Ethnomusicology,
Yeah,
trumpetiste, what is all of that? So I have three questions. Your son, and then what
yeah.
are those trumpetiste and ethnomusicology? Let's go there.
Okay, so my son, to start there, my son, so this was so important to me, honestly, because it was important to me for my son to see someone going for their passion. So I was, let me be honest, I was, like I said, stressed out at Turner. So honestly, when I got home, an hour, whatever day, which, normally didn't end when you got home, like you still answering emails, doing stuff. I didn't have much left, for him, to be honest. I mean, I was giving him some things, but not really what I feel like I should have as a mother. And, I wasn't as patient, excuse me, as patient as probably I could have been. But he was young at the time, so it wasn't too bad or whatever. And so one of the things he said to me, which was so eye-opening, was when I got laid off and I got a chance to sit down, and you grieve the process of leaving a job that you've been with 15 years as you would a relationship. Um, but I was lighter. My spirit was lighter, everything. And so he was like, when I was going to go back and consult, which I ended up doing for those 2 years, he actually was like, are you really, like, maybe you shouldn't do that. He
Oh,
was so like, yeah, because I was so much lighter and so much, happier and easier. And so I wanted him to be able to see, and which he sees now, is that pursue what your heart says. Your heart is really like, probably your main brain. It should be probably. Pursue what your heart is, and he sees what I'm doing and he loves it. He
I'm
plays
sorry,
a little
Tiffany,
bit,
you were
plays a little
breaking up
piano too.
again. You were breaking up. I don't know if it's yours or mine. It could be mine, but you said pursue what your heart says. And
Okay, pursue. Yeah, I think your heart is really should be your first brain, right? I think, so pursue what your heart says, right? Your heart will, will guide you in the correct place. And so he sees what I'm doing. He loves it. He talks to me about it. And as he's going forward, and I talk to him about, hey, don't chase money, chase what you want to do and the money will come. And he
oh,
understands it. Even when we talk about what you want to do, he's like, oh, yeah, no, I don't ever plan to be working in a place where, he's not happy or, just doing things just to do it. Right. And I think, it was important for me to build an environment where he saw that, so that he didn't feel like you had to necessarily go get a corporate job or whatever kind of job. It doesn't have to be whatever, but whatever kind of job that doesn't speak to necessarily your exact love, your exact passion. And let me say this before I say anything. I love definitely certain parts of Turner, and I loved what I did for periods of time. And then there were periods of time where I fell out of love with those things.
mhm.
And, you got to figure out how to get back in love, or that's your signal that time is over, that it's time to move to something else. So that's that part.
Yeah, could just be the season, right? And no matter what, it was really going to create this discomfort inside of you so that you could move. Sometimes we get way too comfortable. And it's when we start to get uncomfortable that we start looking around and asking the questions that are really propelling us to move to the next thing. So, yeah, so you got a little uncomfortable at Turner, and and then the layoffs happened, which was your opening. It was your opening.
It
Yeah.
was.
So tell me really quickly, ethnomusicology and trumpetiste.
So ethnomusicology is the study of music and culture.
Mm.
So my master's in that I'm pursuing really takes you to different geographical regions, India, Africa, New Zealand, like different places, and it takes you back to their origin, their musical origin, understanding how music happened, how does music impact their culture? How is music passed down? A lot of different things, which is really interesting. And I wanted to pursue it. I like, first off, I can be in school for the rest of my life. I like learning. But I wanted to pursue it because I think that music, like some other cultural pieces like food as well, is a great bringer together of people. I think it's a thing that transcends communication, all of those things. Like people, if you like music, people will dance. They don't care if you're black or white or woman or man or where you came from, what's your capital like. They're not looking at that. They're just having a good moment. I think food does a very similar thing. And I wanted to understand the origin. And what you find out is that most musical origin stories are very similar. You try to figure out, how did both of these people come up with a guitar like instrument in two very different places in the world, but this is what they came up with, and so that's what it is. So it's the study of music and culture. And so I've really enjoyed that. And I incorporate a lot of that into my music now, as well as a lot of things around healing frequencies and things like that I'm incorporating as well. But now Trumpetiste, so one of the things that I found really interesting growing up is that as a female trumpet player, you're not really exposed to many women trumpet players. You're exposed to mostly men as professional trumpet players. And it wasn't really until I was grown that I really started seeing like Valaida Snow and Cynthia Robinsons and all of those type of people, women who were brilliant trumpet players. And so I use the term trumpetiste because that's what they use to describe themselves as a woman trumpet player. Okay. Is trumpetiste Cynthia Robinson or Valaida Snow or whatever. And so I said, you know what, I'm going to use that word too, instead of a trumpeter, which is most what very masculine. They were like, no. They were like, I'm a trumpetiste. And I was like, absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. So let me go to our last question. The last question is really your Aha life. I think you've been talking about it all this morning. So the Aha life is a life of more joy, more purpose, and more fulfillment. And it's an awakened life, when we kind of awake to ourselves. And I just love for you to explain, what does the Aha life mean to you, and how are you now living your Aha life?
Oh, I love that question. The Aha life to me means absolutely walking in your purpose, but it means really looking at your life holistically. Not one piece. Like your life is a sum of things that makes it all work together. So I'm a musician, absolutely, and that's a huge piece of me. I'm a mom, absolutely, that's a huge piece of me. I'm also big into, you have to look at what you're taking into your body. So how are you living your best health life in order to even keep your clarity of mind, in order to stay clear, to hear spirit, to all of these things. So what I eat is very important to me. What I see is very important to me. What I hear is very important to me. And this helps me absolutely in my Aha life. I don't even think I don't think I understood how all of these components come together until COVID. Honestly, okay, it's until COVID. COVID was a very awakening moment for a lot of people.
For a lot of people, yeah.
And I was absolutely one of those people. And so, yeah, just looking at life from a very holistic standpoint. Who do you have around you? Who's really cheering you on? Like, when something like you release an album or something, who's really there like, yes, and who's really there kind of like, really understanding who you have in your circle. Like all of these things to me are aha moments that I've picked up over this last 6-7 months of COVID, to say, how do I live definitely my best life,
Yeah.
How do I make sure that I'm showing up in a way that I feel like is a high vibrational way? that I'm giving the most to, not just my son, but to my community at large and to my family and everyone. I think all of these things factor into that aha moment. So yeah, that's how I think, those are, my answer to that particular question. Yeah.
Yeah, Tiffany, you're such an inspiration. Keep going. I love what you're doing, and I'm so, so extremely proud of you and happy to call you friend. And I want you to take us away with some music now. From
So I'm going
Trumpetiste.
to let me change this real quick. I'm going to play the first single off of the album that I released. So it was Forward Movement. That's the first one. My brother was like, release at least one song. And I was like, okay. And this was actually one of the last songs that I came up with, but the first song that I released.
Okay.
Inspired by Miles Davis, All Blues, which is a song I grew up playing and I love it. And here it is. So it's a cyclical song. You'll hear the cyclical message coming through.
Okay.
Sounds good?
Yes. Oh, wow. That was wonderful. That was wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. And that's off Tiffany's album, Today Was a Good Day. Yes. Tiffany Goode. Tiffany, where can listeners find your album?
Oh, absolutely. You can find it really anywhere albums are sold. So you can find it on iTunes, on Amazon, on Spotify, on Tidal, on Bandcamp. So anywhere it's sold, it's on major distribution labels. So
okay.
You can get on YouTube or any of those places.
Yeah, so go out and get it. Listeners, go out and get Tiffany Goode's Today Was a Good Day. Tiffany, today was a good day. It was a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for being here. I didn't know how kindred our spirits are. You know, we have very similar. I don't know. I don't want to say thought processes, but we have very similar beliefs and values. And I really appreciate the conversation. You've been an inspiration to me. So enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you so much for being here. And your Aha Life listeners, thank you so much for joining us this morning or whatever time of day that you listen. Thanks so much. We'll be back again soon.
Thank you.
Thank you for watching. I'm Dr. Tonya Harris Cornelius. Come back again in another couple of weeks for a brand new episode. Hit the subscribe button, and I'll see you soon.